Great. And as Dominica is sharing her screen, their screen, and we can, if everyone would just put their name, pronouns, organization, title, role, and best way to contact you and your goal for this meeting in the chat, it'll be helpful for us to capture that as we move to next steps from this conversation. So feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Slide control here.
You've got everything set?
I think so, but it's not letting me advance. So I was trying to see if I can fix. There we go. Okay, we're good. All right. Well, everyone is welcome to the meeting, and everyone is settling in. I will go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. This is Dominica. My name is Dominica, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I'm the administrator at Haskwit, aka Good Rain Farm. You can reach me at goodrainfarm@gmail.com. My goal today is to connect with other farms and organizations that are eligible to apply for the land access funds directly. And I want to facilitate and leverage the work we're doing and the work I know our fellow farmers are doing, and do a shared network with these stakeholders. I'll jump back to this little prompt here. So if you haven't had a chance to yet, please do drop your info in the chat. And we will use that to reconnect after this meeting and follow up. So please do share those details with us. There will be some info dropped into the chat as well, possibly throughout the meeting, so you can check back for links. And I will not be looking at it because I will get too distracted. So everyone else can get a hold of me a different way. You need to send me a message. So yeah, and let's see. Andrew, if you would, let me know if you think we've gotten to a reasonable quorum and should start digging in.
Yeah, I think we can start. We've got about 35 folks here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think we can get going and maybe give an overview of what we'll be chatting. Great, cool.
Do it. Okay. Well, let me launch in. Like I said, my name is Dominica, and I've been working with Haskwit since 2020. So I've been writing grants, doing work in the background, databasing. Really got my I'm the official desk jockey of the farm. Excuse me. So I am here to share what I've learned. I spent the last few days researching this grant, and I'm jumping ahead of myself here. I was going to do a land acknowledgement first. Let's pause. I am going to do an overview of this grant and give a pitch for an idea that we have, how we could all work together, and leave some room for questions and answers. But first, let me do a bit of a land acknowledgement. So this modern world that we live in allows me to work at a farm in Gresham, Oregon, and also Camas, Washington, while living in Grants Pass, Oregon, some 250 miles south. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the lands I work and live on and peoples represented therein. So Haskwit, aka Good Rain Farm, is located on the lands of the Chinook, Clackamas, Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Kalapuya, Atfalati, Wishram, and so many more honorable peoples. And the land that I am calling from today is the land of the Cow Creek tribe of the Umpqua Band of Indians, and the land of the Takelma and the Tolowa, Dene, and the Modoc tribes. The power and persistence of these peoples transcends a past fueled by colonial genocide and erasure from the first white settlements, broken treaties, forced removal, generations of racist laws and restrictions, abusive residential schools, destruction of waterways and food sources. The list of ways the US government and colonial interests continue to fail the Native people of Turtle Island is vast, and the trauma of that violence is still felt today. But I want to focus also on the present and the future, because there are modern Native peoples all around us, contributing to our community, prospering in business, stewarding the land, and they represent the Indigenous future. This future is made possible by the loving and radical acts of sharing ritual, dance, food, stories, and reconnection to traditional ecological knowledge. And so I recognize and defer to the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, Siletz Indians, Warm Springs, and to the tribes of the Yakima, Chinook, and Cowlitz peoples. Please take a moment today to reflect on whose lands you are currently occupying and how you want to show up in support of your local Indigenous community and its leadership. VisitingNativeLand.ca is a great starting point for this work. So what is this grant? Who can apply? When is it due? And what are the requirements? I'm going to jump in because there's a lot to cover, and I am trying to condense a few days of research on a big announcement and a lot of information kind of down into less than an hour, so we can leave a little room to interact and question and answer at the end. So this grant is aimed to benefit farmers' access to market and material development like land. And we've seen that before in other grants, but this one is a little different in its timeline and its momentum, I would say, and some of its focus. So kind of per usual, I represent a farm and we are ineligible to apply directly, but we are the end beneficiary of the grant. So I'm kind of doing a reverse pitch to organizations that can be a primary applicant on this grant. But also to pull together the farms in our area that are doing similar work and have similar struggles and finding a common solution collectively that is likely to be awarded. And that's my goal. So you can link to the grant from this slide, and I'm hoping someone can drop that link into the chat as well. And it'll be available in follow-up as well. But that is just the grants.gov description. It's got all the packet information in there. If you haven't been there yet, do stop by and visit. There's a lot of information. So yes, this grant is going to be awarded to innovative programs, and the impact is what is being measured. So the greater the number of underserved farmers, the better. And there's less interest from the USDA, it seems like, in an acre for acre purchase as a program. So something I've noted and just want to put out there, that seems to be a key feature to this grant. It is organized in a tier system, and there are 4 of them. They start at a national level, and then they have a mid-tier national level, and then we start getting into the regional and state or local level. I'm speaking from a state and regional level and the local level, because I think those are the 2 tiers that make the most sense for the organizations that I know of and have relationships with through Good Rain Farm, and because of the other farmers in the regionality that I have in mind. So I'm going to be focused on that, but there are other project scopes. I just don't think they're going to apply. The deadline for this is very soon. October 28th is only 6 to 7 weeks away now. So that's not a lot of turnaround time, especially for organizations that have board schedules and need to schedule meetings amongst multi-partners. So I just wanted to get this meeting out into the light and start a conversation so that we could hope to get these, relationship conversations going in a reasonable amount of time to put a proposal together, which I do think is possible, or I wouldn't be here today. So move along. Ooh, if it'll let me. Oh no, I've lost slide control. There we go. So let's do a quick poll of, sorry, yes, we are going to do a quick poll, but speaking of eligibility. So the eligible parties that can apply for this are state and local governments and others, city, local, et cetera, institutions of higher ed, nonprofits, and various tribal organizations. Again, farmers and growers cannot apply directly, but should be the direct beneficiary. And so, well, there we go. The poll that I wanted to survey you all with is what type of organization are you representing today? If this is the list available to you, which one best describes you? And if you are choosing other, if you could let us know in the chat what your other is, that would be very helpful. taking my own poll here. There we go, submit. And Andrew, if you would chime in for me and tell me when we've gotten some responses to that.
Yeah, we got a lot. Couple more folks are responding, and then
Great.
yep.
Great. So, and then at the end of this meeting, I think we're going to take a look at that poll and get a sense of what conversations need to happen next.
I think that's good, Dominica.
Is that good? Okay, great.
Yep.
All right. So what is likely to get funded here? So the short answer is the programs that leverage the most support to the most farmers. And then the longer answer is what I found in the grant language. And this is from the fact sheet, the frequently asked questions, a meeting I caught part of, and some other, all the documentation from the packet. The USDA is looking for outside the box innovations to that usual acre for acre land purchase. Like, okay, so outright purchases are not the most likely to get funded from what I can tell. And there's a strong focus on targeting underserved and minority farmers in the deliverables, and making sure that there's enough like technical assistance and support for those farmers is very much written into the description of the grant. So the likelihood of getting funded is related to the agency's ability to serve those farmers. Just something to note and think about as we're trying to figure out and sort ourselves as to what we can offer in partnership with each other. And those partnerships are going to be most preferred if they include one of the following, kind of either a financial institution, a land trust, or tribal agency, from what I can find. So continuing on that line, some examples. This is really just examples of who could be a partner, and it's, I realize this is a bit redundant, but I think sometimes hearing, we don't always categorize ourselves in the same ways as other agencies would. So kind of thinking of what our organization is doing and what it can provide, knowing that these are the types of partners that the USDA is looking for. And farmers play a role in that because they are the kind of the end served user of this programming. And I think there's room here for a lot of different types of agencies, as this slide lays out, right? There's nonprofits, there's universities and educational, could be financial, could be government-based. There's a lot of options for who can collaborate. So these requirements and timelines are, from what I can tell on the requirements, an application, kind of short form application with simple questions, fill in the box. And then you've got a longer grant narrative document up to 20 pages, a budget narrative, budget detail, and a letter of commitment from partners. So if anyone knows different than that, please do make noise in the chat and correct me. That's what I could surmise from it. There's also a need to have SAM registry and be in, have a profile with grants.gov. Though I do want to note that this grant in particular will apparently waive the SAM registration requirement if you're in process and it's delayed, because there are some significant delays in that for those nonprofits who haven't registered for that, or agencies that haven't registered for a SAM number. So it is required. There might be an extension for it, so that's good news. The timeline is short. October 28th is the application due date. And the awards are announced in winter 2023 to be executed in spring 2023. A note on how many years of funding. There's variations in the funding length based on either the program, the project, or like the tier. So it might be a single funding year, or it might be up to 5, depending on which tier. Is a note I can make about that. Leads of the grant stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about our farm because I don't want to speak for all farms in aggregate or monolith. But I know there's a lot of farms that do similar work to us or might be in similar positions. And it feels more comfortable to share what I know about us definitively and share that and as a starting point. And this isn't to represent all farms, but it is our farm. So we're a 3-acre multi-veggie CSA farm, and we also have educational, cultural, and job skills programming. Y'all know we're in the Portland metro area, and that includes Washington and Southwest Washington. So we consider that whole region when we talk about that region. We need to leave the current land we're on, which is on a farm incubator, by 2024. But according to where we're at in our pre-approval for financing, we still have 2 years to go before we can purchase land. What we have available at the moment for a down payment is looking somewhere around $15,000. And the problematic part of this is that leaves us looking to purchase and move the farm in the same year, which is not ideal in kind of constraints. That is, it's a lot. So moving farms is really expensive. You take a big hit in revenue. It's hugely time consuming. So we want to do that the least amount possible. So we feel like we have this pretty tight 2-year deadline to figure it out. And funding wise, that feels tight, if that makes sense. So that is why I'm sharing that information. That's a little bit about who we are. Looking at the land availability more broadly. So if we want to purchase land, how would we do that? So I'm sometimes a bit, dumb simple about things. I'm like, well, I don't know, we're maybe going to get pre-approved for somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. All right, we're looking for 20 minimum acres, and we want to stay within an hour of the metro area where we have our customer base and where we live, because we're urban farmers. So we have apartments and homes in the city. So we want to stay close if we can. And that's just true for us. That won't be true for all farms, but that's, again, why we're sharing this as a case study. You can see there's not a whole lot of red dots here at that price point. And of those red dots on that map, which was pulled from this week, September 7th, probably 2022. So that's fairly recent. There are not a lot of opportunities there. And of the dots you see, a lot of those properties aren't going to be appropriate for farming. But what if we took the price cap off? And here we see that same search with no price cap. Okay, so same 20-acre minimum and no price cap. So now we see a bunch more properties. Again, not all of them are going to be agricultural appropriate, but now we see like, okay, money talks. Okay, we can get more with some more money. We knew that already. Well, what about if we need a bigger farm? Not all farms can operate profitably over time in a sustainable way. Under 20 acres or around 20 acres. So what if we needed more than that? And here we see that same map, 50-acre minimum size and no price cap. We've shrunk down a little. And then we go to 100 acres, which we don't necessarily need 100 acres for our farm, but some farms do. And there's not a lot of options. And this is price notwithstanding. So this is assuming you could afford anything. Those are the available properties that I can see retail. Probably other properties available hiding, but I can't see them. So that's what I know. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. Like, that's what we're facing. That's what we're looking at in the property, availability. And we're not alone in this thinking. National Young Farmers Coalition recently posted these statistics. See, they're upright. And they are, speaking closely to what we're talking about here. Available and affordable farmland. Where do I find? Please help me find. Access to capital. Please help me find. So those are echoed in the national survey. The support that might help us, and this is not a complete list, are things like down payment support. Which is important, especially in the Oregon and Washington region right now, because there is a specific mini market boom bust in the real estate with the cannabis markets collapsing that has a lot of properties available, but only with a significant down payment in cash. So, down payment support could be really helpful. And some farms recently have been able to do some acreage captures that way, which is great, I think, to a great access point right now that is probably short-lived. But also things like simplified financing options and looking at access to farmland in a lease long-term so that infrastructure and permanent sustainable business growth can happen, but it's not necessarily tied to the ownership of the land exactly. because that is only one model. And then we have, aggregate buying power of trusts that we want to maximize. So those are some helpful things. And again, this is not a complete list. There's so many great ideas that I didn't think of or I don't know of. And this is just some ideas that come to mind. But what if we go bigger and do something that is very likely to get funded and work on coming together to create a collaborative, cooperative farmland trust? And Michelle and I at Good Rain, we've talked about this a lot of, who are the players that should be involved and how do we pull this together? And it seemed like a really long, kind of crazy, dreamy conversation from a couple of years ago now. But here we are talking about it. So maybe now is the time. And this grant seems like the right opportunity to fulfill a lot of these trust missions to preserve farmlands and find an affordable way to allow farmers to access permanent infrastructure that they need to keep their businesses going. There's a specific line that pops up a few times in the grant descriptions and fact sheets called, what did it say? The USDA wants to see farms thrive, not just survive. And I was thinking about that and how much it costs to move a farm or buy land and do these transitions, or for farmers to retain their farmland and not use it as a retirement plan at the end of their careers as farmers. And this kind of a solution would touch on a lot of those challenges and issues. It would help new farmers gain access to the land market. It would stabilize a lot of farm businesses because they'd be able to invest in that infrastructure that they need to either scale up or, do more than just stay afloat. And it doesn't require us to live in debt perpetually as the base model kind of default. So this is powerful stuff that we can look at. And there are local organizations rather doing this in the Portland area. Proud Ground is the one I recently learned of, thanks to Michelle this week. Very last minute, but everything we're doing here feels very last minute. But what I was excited to see is that Proud Ground has a precedent now of what looks to be over 400 properties that they've been able to secure using their model. And while their model is an urban homeownership land trust, I wonder if we can clone that and use that precedent and transition the idea to farmland trust. And that then, we've got a cooperative model, so farmers themselves will be representing themselves as members and have a vote in land access issues and negotiating all of those bips and bops, which is a huge amount of autonomy and allows for people to be in, just a more secure and sustainable position financially. So I think it's something to think about, and I really hope that some of the partners here today, if this isn't for your organization directly, if there's an organization you think would be perfect for it that wasn't present or that we didn't invite, which is absolutely, let's share this wider if it needs to be, and keep sharing. But this is a way that we can take this crazy grant that's happening, take all these partners that are interested and all these farmers that have need and find a collective solution to a bunch of our problems, even if our farms aren't exactly the same. And I think that's really important. So that was a mouthful. And I'm going to say some thank yous, and then we can ask some more survey questions and do some more Q&A because we are not done. But that is my presentation on what this grant is and an idea of what we could do right now that has precedent. So as a proposal. Thank you so much for coming today. I know it's a really busy time of year, and I really appreciate your attention here and your energy here. And thank you so much to Andrew and the Oregon Community Food System Network for helping facilitate, and for other volunteers that jumped in with resources and translation services. Thank you. And then the notes and recording from this will be made available via email as soon as possible. And I so encourage that all of us continue this conversation. So this is conversation one, and I hope it to be one of many, and that we can sort ourselves out today to figure out who we should follow up with and how best to do it either collectively or individually, because I wish us all success in getting awarded this grant. So with that, here's some resources that we will share via email as well. But if you need them, they're got the grant description and a shared Google Drive where we can collaborate with that link. You can gain access and the link to Proud Ground so you can check out their land trust. So let's open up for some more conversation. And Andrew, feel free to jump in and catch me up on chat activity and or if we need to pivot.
Yeah, a couple things.
Yes.
So there's one question here. Would it be helpful to have a contact list for everyone? So I'm going to share this another poll in just asking y'all if you're interested and have the capacity to engage in this. And then if you individually have the authority to represent your organization in this process, or if you can bring it to your decision-making body. So that'll help us, identify the contact list of folks who want to continue this conversation. So I'm going to share that first. And then I think we're opening it up to conversation, question and answer. So if folks want to, we'll do a stack. If folks will raise their hand and we'll get to individuals by who raise their hand first and go through. And I think, because there's a lot of folks on the call, we'll start with trying to keep it short, relatively short, the comments. And then, as things progress, if there's time, we'll make sure that everyone is heard. So just want to make sure that we're hearing from everyone. Great. So we're doing the poll now. And then if folks want to start raising hands, does that sound good, Dominica?
Yes, and if any of the questions overlap any of our survey questions, maybe we can just jump to that survey at that time.
The survey will be, the survey is at the end.
Okay,
so
great.
when we end the meeting, unless I screwed it up somehow, but I think that's how that works. Great. Yeah, so I don't see anyone from OAT on the participant list, the Oregon Agricultural Trust. That's it. Yep. So folks want to raise their hands and we can have a conversation. And maybe I'm missing somebody. No.
Somebody.
Go ahead, Eddie. Adam. I see Adam.
Yes, Adam.
Hi, Adam Cole, Growing Hungry here. This really fits well into work that was done with a small subgroup, I think Access to Land group from OCFSN in 2018 and 2019. And one of the ideas that we had kicked around there, like with Megan Horst and Greg, I'm going to forget his name, I'm sorry, Greg, of doing finding some group to host the development of a cooperative that would create a shared ownership model. One of the issues in Oregon is that land cannot be partitioned. If it's EFU zoned, it can't be partitioned less than 80 acres, I think, which really prices most farmers out of the market, where a lot of the small producers really only need 2 to 5 acres. And so pursuing the development of a cooperative ownership or fractional ownership type model for farmers where they could get access to a large 80-acre built out farmland with irrigation and infrastructure, but only have to worry about buying in 5% or 10% of the total. I would be super interested and have some capacity to develop that idea on short turnaround. Just wanted to put that out there.
All right. I see, let's see here. Eddie, did you raise your hand or did I miss you?
No, I was, I saw the hand up thinking it was me and it wasn't. I don't have a question yet. I'm
okay.
Good.
Alex.
Yeah, so I posted this in the chat about Oregon Agricultural Trust. It's either not here, but Eddie responded that you've talked with Nellie. I'd just be curious. I don't know a ton about OAT, but I would be curious about why we're talking about starting a new trust if there is an ag trust already? And I'd be curious about sort of the distinction and what, yeah, I just want to understand better what this would be doing that isn't, or if there's possibilities for partnership there.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Dominica here. I'm going to jump in with.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I just want to jump in with, I think what we would do there is, or if existing trusts wanted to be the primary applicant for this, it would be working on a proposal that is innovative to whatever they are already doing, I would imagine, but maybe not by much in terms of catering it to a specific subgroup of farmers or small farmers, or cut a subgroup however you like in the proposal. But I think scoping it out that way is part of the proposal development. So that's somewhat up to the agency that takes it on. If I misunderstood or someone has a better answer for that, please do jump in. But just to clarify that, like, we can create that precedent through that proposal writing process.
I see Michelle's hand.
Yeah, I was just going to add that some of my experience as a farmer who owns a farm but doesn't own land, it is extremely difficult for a non-landowning farmer to engage with agricultural land trusts. They typically only work with existing farm land and farm owners in preserving that land in ag use, but not necessarily in the acquiring of that property or securing someone for a very long lifetime long lease of an organization or business. And that's where our kind of innovative idea is coming from, and where I'm kind of looking at Proud Ground going, they allow ownership of property at low income dollar amounts that allow entry into home ownership, or in our case, maybe entry into farm ownership, but lock it into that kind of resale. So the homeowner at Proud Ground, or the farm owner in our case, can only sell to another low income entry point person to continue the same exercises. And I do hear, I think Adam mentioned, right, that a lot of land trusts have these large acreage caps. And I challenge everyone to drop those, drop them like a hot potato. They're not very useful. And especially when we're talking about access to markets, which is another key part of the USDA grants here and a focus on them. Access to markets is geographical location and safety, especially for minority farmers, to be near urban areas, to make that transportation of veg short, quick, fast, keep it fresh, keep it cheap, keep it accessible, keep it safe. Not all spaces are safe. So I would just like really challenge current and existing land trusts to think about the size of lands they are supporting.
And if I could piggyback, Dominica here, if I could piggyback on that, that I'm keen, we're both keen on how the equity grows, not only for the land trust fund in this model in perpetuity, meaning it has sustainable features moving past the grant lifespan, which is good, but also the buyers, the owners are not shut out of equity. That is one of the hugest, I can't even, I'm gonna cry because it's such a personal, but also what we're talking about here. Not having equity in the work you do is what robs you of all that time life spent doing the work, right? So we want equity to go equitably to the owners, but still allow for that collective fund to prosper. And this model allows for that, which is just hitting so many of the boxes of what this grant is aimed for, that it feels like a good ringer at this regional level. So it is ambitious and I'm optimistic about it. I will grant everyone those biases, but I think with good reason. It's the third year I've seen grant funding come around for land access, and this is the best one yet. This is the best one yet. I don't know if it's coming again. And yeah.
Any other comments? Eddie?
Just partially, well, not partially, fully a reminder that the flow of funds and I think Good Rain farm is it has been, it's just engaged, and Michelle and her team and what she's doing. I think we're at a place where we have enough information and we have enough connections, because a lot of us have been sitting in the rooms developing what equity looks like. We now have folks in Gresham that are on the call are now using, City of Gresham is using the equitable food oriented development metrics, and they're delivering, and the buildings are up, and there's process. So I think it's not difficult to get on the horn with Washington Farmland and talk to Nellie again in a formal way as a group, as we're meeting today. And once we form how, we're either going to separately approach the dollars as smaller groups. I just want to reinforce what I'd like to be common knowledge is the majority of this funding is being routed through USDA for those most, in terms of data points, that are disparate, right? So the previous work to this point, along with this money, comes from the Black Farm Recovery Bill. It comes from tribal recovery dollars that are now being, and I would prefer that there always be Black, Indigenous, or Latinx organizations as the primary leads on any of this work to the primary, especially acquisition of land. So there's going to be decades and decades or hundreds of years to get land back legally, right? So those transactions aren't going to, when we have dollars now. So I would propose that any of the organizations that own the land would be tribal organizations. And if there isn't a tribal organization ready to do that, that they're giving full ownership of the land, and one of the white-led organizations or dominant population serving like Oak offer those services for free to develop a Indigenous-led Black and Indigenous ownership, because then Black folks can lease that land, lease to own from Indigenous people under that banner. Like I don't see, based on what we know, and there's people on the call who've been in all the meetings. So, and some of you haven't, I understand that. But from my position, I see this as an opportunity for the true inequities in the food system to be corrected collectively. And if that means that there are 3 separate approaches to the grant, and one of us is going to get it, and we're going to redistribute the dollars the same way and manage those dollars for people, right? And do the work that a lot of us, a few of us on the call can do as urban planners, as land managers, as folks who really like to dig into the cooperative stuff. It's not impossible. It's being done all over the planet right now successfully. And it's taken hold in Black communities on the East Coast and in Northeast, like Leah Penniman stuff. I mean, the Black Family Land Trust, they're ready to train us. So I say we all take training from Black Land Trust, Black Family Land Trust, and the Indigenous equivalent, and then we all sit back and then but we need to apply for this money. Like it has to be done. This is the time. This ain't gonna happen again. So much love. I look forward to watching this be successful in Oregon.
Great. Nice. Natalie.
Hey, yeah, I just put this just finishing putting this in the chat, and maybe this is already on people's radar, but agrarian commons or the agrarian trust definitely comes to mind for having a model for this type of work in different states. And I don't know if they're planning on applying for some of these funds, and if we could leverage some of the partnerships here to bring any of that to Oregon for their agrarian trust or their agrarian commons model, which sounds very similar. From what I know about it, sounds very similar to some of the equity pieces that you're introducing, and like making sure farmers have a way to build equity in the land and have long-term leases, governing organization, things like that. So I'd be curious to bring them into the conversation.
And Dominica chiming in, I do love when an organization that is very adjacent to the end goal can jump in, because there's less learning curve for that organization then to do fulfillment on the deliverables, right? So that's always great. If I've said something that is close to someone else's idea, let us join forces and not be competitive about it, because the point is to get a great program grant funded. That's the point. So yeah, I love that. That sounds great. I'm glad to hear that.
And they don't have any properties in Oregon now, but I mean, they have done a lot of the footwork on like setting up something like this. So be good to at least check in with them.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of the success of this comes down to some of the mundane, boring bits and bops, which is like, can we have meetings? Can we get agreements? Can documents be gathered and submitted and reviewed in time? And with 7 weeks, that's like, I literally cannot answer on behalf of y'all's agencies, because I don't know where you're at in your board meeting schedules. And I know that that's not a lot of time, even for an emergency meeting to be called. So yeah, with that said, I fully anticipate if something is moving forward, and there is any help I can lend, that I would be hearing about it over the next 7 weeks, yeah.
Great. Any other comments? D.
Yeah. So to answer in the chat, this is Shantae.
Okay. Great.
I am on the leadership team of Black Oregon Land Trust, and yes, we are looking at applying for this grant, but needed to gather more information and see where we can align with other organizations, because it is a huge opportunity and could have a huge impact on our collective communities. So we're just in the gathering information stage right now.
And this is Dee with Oregon Food Bank. Just a couple things. One, the grants team with Oregon Food Bank has offered multiple times to the farmers in the Pathways to Farming program that anytime grants come up, they're happy to support that in the writing. So if that would be helpful at all for anyone, I'm sure that we could figure out ways to get the grants team at the food bank to support any initiatives as land access, specifically for BIPOC communities, is one of the primary goals for the organization within its 10-year vision. And so there's that to offer. And then in addition, within the Pathways program, several of the farmers in the program, I think, would be interested in obviously being the beneficiaries of these funds. I'm certainly interested in exploring this cooperative model. But I'm not sure if now is the right time to work with the farmers, or if this is more like getting the funding. So I guess it's more of a question is like, is now a good time to have farmers be collected, or farmers be connected rather with whoever's applying to this? Would that be helpful?
I'll chime in to say that if there was a proposal and we could review it, that getting letters of commitment and support is part of the grant packet. So I would assume that may include also, like, if farmers were to become members, knowing that you had a membership base in place would benefit the application, I would imagine. So in terms of should the farmers be involved there, I think you'll want to see if there's support directly for that with those farmers, right? To be that fund, to be the members of that fund. So yes, connect with them early, often. I guess that would be my takeaway.
All right. Any other comments? This is great. This is exactly the conversation we were hoping would happen. OCFSN and the farming for the future. Oh, go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, just in response to what we would have to offer towards this effort. Sylvia's on the call and we didn't really get into it, but we do have technical assistance available to farmers of color to kind of like help walk through all the pieces of finding land and getting a lease agreement lined up or a purchase agreement. And we have participants in that program. So similar to what I think Dee just said, we might be able to offer like a letter of support and some feedback from those farmers, because technical assistance only goes so far. Like you need money to actually get land, and that's what we don't have access to right now is actual money to get into the hands of farmers to make a land purchase. So yeah, but we do have some farmers that we're working with that would possibly be really good candidates for an arrangement like this if land were to be purchased.
Thank you. Spring.
Hi, I put this in the chat, but I'm just wondering, it's like crickets right now. So I was wondering if anyone from the nonprofit region that's here might want to jump out and say, yeah, this is kind of scary, but we're going to look into it, or offer anything at this point, some voices of what we can do about it. Eddie has a point. This might not happen again. It's time to go now. The farmers are harvesting. There's also labor shortages, climate change issues we're balancing. We need to get this going today, kind of, and it is always in the starting phase, but for our farmer, October 28th is tomorrow. And we're trying to harvest, labor shortage. So getting a letter of commitment takes time. Some of us don't have employees, or, we need to get this kind of moving. So while the nonprofit, there's a lot of you here, I think 70% of the poll, does anyone quickly want to say yes or no, or what can we do to help? Or we have an idea, because you get all the farmers to collaborate and do letters of commitments, but we don't still really know exactly what we're committing to. And we're not all in the Portland area, just throwing that out there. So if anyone, there's like 7 minutes left, wants to jump in and really like speak instead of just zooming to be here, it'd be awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Spring. Brad.
Yeah, I'm with Rockwood CDC, Community Development Corporation of Oregon, and we are one of the leads. We're actually kind of the fiscal lead, I guess, for the Rockwood Food System Collaborative, which is pretty much all BIPOC farmers. And I mean, we'd be willing, if you need a good sized nonprofit that already has gotten business, one successfully with USDA. There's a couple, Black Food Sovereignty Council's one, we're one. Our interest would not be to like run a program. Our interest, our core mission and vision, it would be to hold the asset while a cooperative arrangement is put together and long-term leases given, and perhaps even selling off over time. Don't know. But if you need an organization that's looked at as by the USDA as a responsible party to hold the asset, we'd be willing to step up and do that.
I see Spring's hand again.
No, I'm done. I don't know how to turn it off.
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to
sorry.
work, sorry.
No worries. I didn't, I thought it went down. I can drop your hand.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Any other folks have a similar comment like what Brad just offered, or any thoughts? I can speak for my role at OCFSN, Oregon Community Food Systems Network. in the Farming for the Future working group, I have some capacity to help and continue supporting these conversations if that's needed or is desired. So, we'll be gathering the information of who said, yes, we want to get engaged in this, reaching out again, and I can help set up meetings and do that kind of stuff. But yeah, it makes sense. This is a big opportunity. Lots of folks are kind of thinking how their organization plays into it. So yeah, I just want to throw it back out to the group in our last 5 minutes.
Yeah, this is Holly Hutchison from the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition. We're really interested in this project. I'm kind of holding back a little bit because I know that a lot of our CSA farms have very similar issues to this, but only about 10% of our farms are BIPOC owned. And so I'm not sure it's, I'm not sure it meets everybody's goals if we were to play a large part in this. I'm also not sure we have the capacity for it. But what I can offer is, I do have a little bit of a platform, a social media platform, and we do have a lot of farmer contacts who might be interested in weighing in on this or helping with it or being part of it. And of course, we are always more than happy to help with any sort of technical assistance or letter of support, that kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you, Holly. I see Jason's hand.
Hey everyone, my name is Jason. I use he, him pronouns. I'm with Growing Gardens. Reem is on the call, so I've got a great teammate here. Spring, I think it's a great question because I think here's where the rubber meets the road, right? Like it's, from my understanding, Dominica did a great job on this. Like this needs to be some matchmaking, right? There needs to be some farmers who are like, we need to get some land. We want to access as much of this money as possible. And then the nonprofit or other agency has to be applying for this, right? So it's got to be like that match or multiple matches that are made. And so I think for me, in our work at Growing Gardens, we're here to help support and make sure that you all get as much money as possible to buy land, period. And so whatever that looks like, if that's supporting Shantae and Art and the Black Oregon Land Trust, or with Eddie or other folks who want to lead that like us, then adding capacity and support to that we're interested in that. We don't want to be the owners of this land. We don't want to be the owners of this asset or anything like that. We want this to basically go to you all. And so I don't know how that looks within this grant or this grant agreement, but full disclosure, I haven't read the whole RFP yet. But I'd say we're interested in that to make sure that whoever wants to get money in this, that we're here to help get that money for you all.
This is Dominica, if I understand correctly, there is room for, I guess you could call it technical assistant to the applicant, right? So there's an applying organization and they might need support. And that if that is written in and mapped out, I think that's a perfect way for nonprofits that don't want to be land holding necessarily, or for those that can be land holding but don't want to be programmatically managing, to come together and do the different bits and pieces and support in a variety of ways. So it could be partial completion together, or it's one group that's going to do the primary lead application, but a group of other organizations supporting that lead applicant, which I think is the most likely way for it to succeed. So no matter who is a lead applicant on this, I think it is wise that we match make and offer support to what I hope is multiple projects. At the end of the day, I don't imagine there's only one project out of this that might happen. But if a cooperative land trust can form and we can join in forces with it, that we're ready to do that as a farm, to say, yeah, here's our pledge. You've got us on board. So yeah, Andrew, do we have any other surveys or polls to run before we disband?
There'll be one final survey at the end for folks that was in your slideshow.
Oh, I get you at
Yep.
after meeting. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that will be, I'm trying to look at those questions here real quick.
No, that's great. And while you're doing that,
Cool.
I just say, like, generally, I will say this: let's be bold, reach out to people, name names. Like it's like peer pressure, but for the good cause, right? Where like, if you know somebody has a skill set and can do the thing, please do let them know, offer your support to them. And I would love to, if there's follow-up conversations in aggregate that want to happen, I would be happy to do that. So if people want to meet up in a week or so and then another week or so to talk about aggregate process and this community, how to get the right partners involved, we might need another meeting or two for that. And I am open to supporting that in whatever way is supportive. So just put that out there. Let's meet more and talk more as soon as possible.
Thanks, Dominica. I see Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening. Really appreciate you, Spring, for yeah, just acknowledging that folks are listening and it has been silent. I really appreciate Jason's comments. I feel similarly. And, you know, I'm not in the decision-making role at EcoTrust, but I can bring this to folks who are. And yeah, we have a lot of experience, a lot of successful experience with USDA grants, not this specific type. I think a lot of our team doesn't have specific expertise in land access, and so there would be a learning curve, but we want to offer what we can, absolutely, whether that's letters, you know, happy to have the conversation about us being lead. I don't know if that does make sense. Similarly, we're not looking to hold on to assets, not looking to run programming. The goal is to keep farms like Good Rain in a place of thriving and growing, because much of our programming and mission can exist without that. So just keep us involved. You know, Maya's on here, Caitlin as well, Ashley, who's new in our team. So please keep us in the loop and let us know how we can support. But I just want to echo what Jason shared. And I think we're in a really similar place there in terms of what we can offer as a C3 EcoTrust. So I'll stop there. I'm really grateful for the space and for everyone who's sharing, feeling energized. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the recording downloaded, uploaded, and get the notes out, the transcript for this meeting to you all as soon as possible. And we'll be following up for next steps and continuing the conversations very quickly. Like everyone said, October 22nd is tomorrow, so, or 28th, sorry. And yeah, so we'll be following up very quickly. I think we'll wrap it. I'll let if there's anything else, Dominica, you want to say, and be safe out there. Hope everyone's being healthy with the smoke and taking care of yourselves. And yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to everyone for attending. And yeah, be safe out there and take your time filling out that survey, make it meaningful to a next step. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon so we can move forward. Thank you so much.